Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Daniel, one half of the Kwak Brothers. And in this video, I got one of my very, very good friends, Mr. Randy Pertler, and we're going to be talking about subject to acquisition. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Daniel, one half of the Kwak Brothers. And again, I have my very good friend here, Mr. Randy Pertler. How are you today?
Great to be here. Great to see you again.
Right on. And we are talking about today one of the best acquisitional strategies, in my opinion, during the recession, during hard times. And I got Randy here who's a little bit more seasoned than I am. I know he looks like he's 30, 35 years old, but he's been investing in real estate for how long now?
If I have to count the years, it's probably close to about 30 years.
30 years. So 30, that's actually longer than I've been alive, right? So it's my absolute honor and pleasure to have him here. Let's go ahead and get right to it. But of course, guys, please give this video a subscribe. We put out content, especially related to the recession when it comes to real estate investing every single week. So if you subscribe, you're the first one to get that piece of information and beat out all the other people looking to compete. All right, so let's go ahead and get to it. Randy, so in your experience, in your 30 years of experience, you've done a good number of subject twos. In your opinion, what is a subject to acquisition?
Well, a subject to acquisition, it's short for subject to existing financing. So a whole strategy is about leaving the existing financing in place. And if you think about that possibility, it just opens up a world to you. What if you don't have to qualify for a mortgage? Yeah. What if you don't have to maybe even come up with a down payment? What if you don't have a credit, problem or issues? Or it just opens up the sea of possibilities to you. And a lot of people, they're afraid to go there. And there's some misinformation out there. And it's a calculated risk like any real estate investing strategies. A lot of them have risk and reward. And my particular strategy or how I implement that strategy is to be upfront, honest, ethical with the homeowner. Yeah. And I'm really helping them. I know you guys are the same way. We see real estate investing as problem solving. Yeah. And this is a problem. I'm solving a problem that some homeowners have, and this might be their only alternative. And I tell them, you may not think it's the best alternative in the world, but it might be your best alternative, and it might be your only alternative. So, I meet with them and I basically explain all their options, and this is usually the last one I kind of come to. And listen, if it's not good for them, I don't want to do it. But a few of them that I've done it with, I mean, they wrote me and reach out to me like every year, a couple times a year, thanking me still for the acquisition that I did and that the problems that alleviated for them. Yeah.
And now you said, you're very sensitive, you're honest, and it is a very emotional and sensitive topic for homeowners, for you as an investor. So, what is the typical situation of an individual that you come across when it comes to a subject to acquisition?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you a little story about the first one.
Please.
And I think this will really drive the point home, and you can really envision the person that we're targeting. So I saw an ad on Craigslist, and I was actually looking for a buyer. I was looking to build my buyers list. And one strategy is you look for people that have rental property, figuring they're investors and they may want more rental properties. So I was building my buyers list, and I called this person on Craigslist that had a house for rent. I call him up and the conversation went something like this. Hi, my name is Randy Pertler. I'm a real estate investor. I saw that you had a property for rent on Craigslist. I was wondering if you were interested in maybe buying more rental properties at maybe 80 to 60 cents on the dollar. Would you be interested? Here was his response. Heck no. It's like that. Heck no, I don't want this one. And so if you're not a problem solver and you're just trying to build a buyer's list at this point, my response would have been, oh, okay, good luck. Click. Right. But no, I'm a problem solver. Does this guy have a problem? Yeah, it's pretty obvious he has a problem, right? Now I got to find out what the problem is and if at all I have any strategies available to help him out. So I kind of laughed because he said it was, heck no, I don't want this one. And I laughed. I said, well, what's wrong with this property? It looks beautiful with the pictures. He goes, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the property. I just put all this money into it. I had a renter. I moved out of state. They were supposed to buy it with owner financing, and they end up losing their job. They had to move out, had to evict them. Now I got to run it all over again, and I'm out of state, and I don't want the property. And I said, well, why don't you sell it? And he said, listen, I've got this mortgage about $120,000, and it might only be worth about $110,000. It would cost me $20,000 to sell it by doing closing costs, and if I listed it and all this stuff. So I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about the house, because I see here you were advertising it for rent at $1,400 a month. I said, did you already have it rented previously at $1,400? He said, yeah, I had it rented at $1,400. I said, well, what's your mortgage payment? Principal, interest, taxes, everything, all in, insurance. What's your mortgage payment? I believe it was at that time, it was about 11. It's gone down a little bit, but I think it was about 1150, something like that. Okay, so little quick math in my head, right? Getting 1,400, you're getting 1150 in, even though there's negative equity. Me as a real estate investor, when I buy rental properties, this is just my ID. This is how I do it. I'm buying for cash flow, right? Equity, you can't spend equity unless you refinance the house or you sell it. Otherwise, equity is just sitting there anyway. And this was my first, and this is strategic in my part. I may not do that now after I've done subject to deals, but the first one's your hardest one. And here's why. Not just the knowledge and experience, but because of that question that homeowner might ask is, have you done this before?
Yeah.
And if so, can I talk to those homeowners to make sure you did what you said?
Well, it's the same as
do?
getting your first investor, right?
Yes,
it's like, hey, have you done a deal before? It's the same thing. Yeah.
So I was willing to trade my first deal off for maybe a little negative equity in the house, but positive cash flow, which is why I buy rental property anyway. So we basically negotiated. He'd already moved out of state. We negotiated over the phone. And I told him, I left the conversation. Well, first I said, are you familiar with the subject to acquisition? And he said, no, not really. And I explained it to him. And here's what you need to know. And you can have the person call up, go get your mortgage document. You'll see something on their acceleration clauses, or you'll see due on sales clauses. Read that to me, okay? Or if they don't, I don't know where it is. Well, listen, read it on your own, but it'll say something like this, that if there's a change of more than 25% of the ownership of a property, the lender, at the lender's discretion, may call the mortgage due or the loan due in full. An acceleration clause will then be enacted. Acceleration will then be enacted, and you have 30 days to come up with all the money. Yeah. And I kind of just threw that into explanation. Doesn't state that exactly like that. But see, that's the thing. They have to understand that the mortgage doesn't want to call the note due. Then what they got to do? Take it and then get another mortgage? I mean, they're in business to give mortgages, right? Especially, and you mentioned this time when home values went down and people couldn't make payments, and we may be seeing that again now. If that happens, the last thing the mortgage company wants is a foreclosure on their books, because that decreases their ability to lend, right? And to get money to lend. So that's number one. And number two, why would they want that when they have if they have a paying mortgage already? They don't care. It's like, is their money green? Yeah, their money's green. I don't care who pays the mortgage. Pay the mortgage. Get it current. So, I mean, if the equity ever built up where it was, a huge spread in equity, you say, oh, maybe a savvier lender may try to do something with that. But I've developed documents over or through the past few years that protects the homeowner in case that happens. And that's important. You want this to be a win-win for everybody. And again, if they can sell the property outright, God bless you, do it. I'll help you sell it. I'm a licensed broker. I'll help you sell it. But that's not an option for everybody. It could be various reasons. I've had different situations. One moving out of state of their principal home. That was another deal. One was just an elderly person, didn't have really any equity. She'd already moved out with her sister, and she didn't want to show the property or list it or anything. So there's a number of ideal candidates for this. The key really is at least amount of money on your own pocket is someone that has little or no equity. Yeah. Okay. And you're doing it. Why would I do it? Little or no equity. It's the cash flow. You got to analyze it as cash flow. And if you do, it might be a win-win for you.
Right. Yeah. 100%. So let's finish out the first story. So what exactly happened? Did he bite? What occurred?
Yeah, absolutely. So he was already moved out of state. We had negotiation over the phone a few times. And he ended up agreeing to it. I told him I don't know if I'm interested in your house or not. I got to go look at it. Can you get me access to it? Who's ever showing it for renting, can they show it to me? I'll take a look at it. I'll run the numbers and I'll get back to you. And all of that is true, but it also serves another purpose. They see I'm not in there a vulture trying to steal their house.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll buy it. I'll buy it. I don't know if I'm going to buy it. I don't know if I want it.
Right.
I'm looking at this long term, and they know that I'm looking at this long term, and this has to make sense, right? So I went in, took a look at the house. It was immaculate. They did actually some really, really nice things with it. So here I had this perfect house ready to rent, 1,400. It's already being, advertised really for me. And so we went ahead and did it. Now that first one, we met, contacted an attorney that I know that specializes in real estate. And we closed the deal at an attorney's office, the first one, okay? And I actually was coaching the attorney during the process because he wasn't familiar with this.
Right. Well, it's creative financing. Not a lot of professionals are familiar with creative financing.
He kind of advertised himself as like the #1 attorney in the area for real estate. This was all new to him, coached him through it. But then after that, even though Illinois is a very attorney-heavy state, the other deals I don't close with an attorney. I don't even close at a title company. And I saw something, you got to do it this, you got to do this. Well, no, actually, the second one I closed, it cost me $52 to record the document.
Nice. Well, tell me. So that was your first one, and tell me about another story where perhaps you have more experience under your belt. You're at the point now where you've done subject to before. Do you have another experience where I don't want to say it was more crisper, but you were more experienced in the process?
Yeah, I think the very next one that I did probably is a good example. So I'm a part of a real estate community of people that meet all the time. So in one of those meetings, somebody got my information and they reached out to me, and they were new. They were new to real estate. They knew the concept a little bit about subject to, and they said, well, my aunt and uncle wants to move out of state, and I think they'd be open to a subject to. They have little or no equity in their house, and they don't want to put it on the market. They don't want to show it. So I agreed to go meet with them. So we walked through the house. I met with them. We walked through the house. And always remember, we went to the garage. The garage, they had a little table set up in the garage. And I explained in detail. I want them to be very comfortable with what a subject to was. So I explained the pros and the cons of a subject to deal. And one question I always ask is, what are your intentions when you sell this house? And the reason that's important is because I want to look to the future for them. A subject to, they're remaining on the mortgage. So they have that obligation for a mortgage. Yeah. Now, that does not mean that they can't get another mortgage for a new house. That just means that it's going to affect their debt to income ratio. And I want them to be aware of that. But I've actually provided documents for lenders that they went out and got a mortgage. And I provided the documentation that shows that I'm legally obligated to make this mortgage. And they did count it as income for them.
Oh, good.
So I was able to help them get their next mortgage. Good. Even though at the time, when I asked them that question, we don't want a house, we're just going to rent. We're moving down south.
Right.
We're going to be renting for years, whatever. Well, a year later, they were asking me if I could help them and I did by providing this document, and they got approved for the mortgage. But understanding what a debt to income ratio is and how that affects them getting approved for the next house. But a lot of people, after they've walked away with a house, a lot of times this has been a bad experience. They have little or no equity. They have to get out of it, or it's a rental property. Sometimes the last thing they're going to do is rush in to buy another house. But if you do, you want to coach them on that and tell them what the implications are of doing the subject. It doesn't mean you can't get many more mortgages. It's just you got to look at your debt to income ratios.
100%. Yeah. And obviously, subject to, it's a very, it's not only a sensitive acquisitional strategy, but it's a strategy where it very much depends on the person. Yeah. There's no cookie cutter, one size fits all, type of spiel. And same like it is with any creative financing, right? So I understand you've got some gifts, right, for our viewers watching our YouTube channel right now. You've got some things to offer them. What are those things? Yeah.
So first of all, my disclaimer: I'm not an attorney. Get legal advice, but I've created documents over the years of doing subject to that both protects me and the homeowner and makes them feel comfortable with it, because it's a very trusting transaction. They got to trust you. You got to trust them. It's a trusting transaction, and you got to build that trust. But I think the documents that I've put together over the years have allowed me to do that, and they've all been smooth. Nothing has, nothing has gone back. The bank has not called the mortgages due, anything like that. So I prepared that.
And what do you got for us?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I just this is just a definition of or the clause, the due on sale clause, right? Yep. And so this is a purchase agreement. So what this is this is the purchase agreement that I use on a subject to deal. And the reason I don't use like the broker contract, and I try to teach real estate investors a lot. Obviously, if they're a licensed broker, the brokerage may mandate that. But if you're not mandated by this is a very simple 3-page contract, because I want to be able to explain every single paragraph on here.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to build trust and I give you a 13-page document and it has all this legal terms and they say, what does this mean? And you can't clearly articulate what that means, already the red flags are going up. You want me to sign something you don't even know what it says. How am I supposed to know what it says? So a very clean document, which is critical. And the other thing, here's also that what I've developed. This is an addendum. And I call this the due on sales acknowledgement. So what you don't want to have happen is a year or two later, they come back to you and say, I didn't know that the mortgage company could call it due. I have a specific page on the addendum that they fill out, I fill out. We both not just sign it, but we both notarize it. So it's very clear to them. And I also explain to them, if the note is called due, what do I need to do? And just tell you in short, it's pay the balance. So if they think worst case scenario, right? They get the mortgage called due. They say, well, we see that you've had change of ownership, even though you're making on-time payments for some reason. We want to call the mortgage due. Even worst case scenario, if that happens, I have 30 days from the time that they notify me to either pay the balance off. So I pay cash, pay it off. I refinance the loan and pay it off. I sell the property and pay it off. Or worst case scenario, I deed it back to them.
Oh, nice.
To remedy that. And just see what a better position they would be in. Let's say they had little or no equity, and then 3-5 years later, after I'm paying those mortgage payments, if I can't do one of those things and pay it off, they're going to get a house probably worth more, number one, and with a lower balance. And now they might have all kinds of options available to them to sell it. Now that might be that equity spread that they need in order to sell it conventionally or sell it to an investor for cash or whatever. So I have that purchase contract on there. I also, and this is critical too, I have the letter that I have that I send to the lender.
Oh, very nice.
So let's say your lender is XYZ Bank, right? I have the letter. You want to notify them that another person is, and the terminology is very important, right? Because you don't want to set off red flags and give them information or something to worry about. It's a very simple letter that states that Randy Pertler or my company will be making mortgage payments on their behalf. Please submit or please send all future documentations, statements to this address. And that's it. Very simple. Oh, and then by the way, I put in there, please find enclosed the payment for next month. Okay. And the reason I do that is very important. The bank could never say, or the lender could never say, oh, we didn't know. It's like, it's in the letter and you cash the check.
Exactly.
So obviously you know, but it's just little, you want to take as many precautions as possible. And over the years, I've tried to instill all of those. And then also I'll include the document that I sign. If that person wants to go on and get a mortgage and they want documentation that you're responsible for the mortgage, I've given them that to help them if they want to get a mortgage in the future.
So you really got everything, every section that we just talked about today covered. It's airtight. And I like the simplicity of it because it is an emotional process. And the same thing with creative financing, with owner financing and things like that. You have to simplify everything and you have to articulate it in a certain way. So thank you so much for being here and doing this video with us. And obviously for those of you guys that want the link to these documents, click on the link in the description below and you'll be taken to another page, to where you can have access to these documents and really just, again, simplifying. And let me say this again, this is information that you want to hear because right now we're recording this in, middle of 2020. And I think the possibilities of subject to acquisitions are going to skyrocket in the next 2-3 years. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. And you need to have as many strategies in your arsenal. And that's just like the first guy that said, heck no, I don't want this. Most people would have just hung up and said, good luck, right?
Exactly.
But because you understand various strategies, those are more ways to help people. So this is critical, especially like you say, if property values start to decrease a little bit, there'll be more and more people in this exact position that this is going to be their one and only alternative.
Yeah, exactly. So, go ahead and check out the documents, guys. And also don't forget, Randy was actually featured on our podcast, First Deal Experience. So if you want to check that out, go on our Spotify, our iTunes, and also the links in the description where you actually get to see podcast links where we literally bring on experienced investors like Randy, and we have them share the story of their first deal. So you were just featured on it a couple weeks ago. It was great to have you. So click on that link and also check out Randy's stuff. And of course, guys, subscribe, like, and share this video as well. Thank you so much again, Randy, for being here. I'll see you guys in the next one.